This week's Knitting SOS video is on fixing make one increase mistakes and how to add a make one increase that you should have put in the fabric a couple of rows before. Now, as always, if you'd like to jump right to a specific point in the video, there are direct links down in the description. Before we get started, we need to establish which type of make one increase you're using in your project. And I don't mean make one left or make one right. I mean that there are two different techniques that both produce make one increases. The first one is called the raised make one increase, and it's the one that my video from a couple of months ago is based on. And it's done by lifting the running thread between two stitches and then knitting that running thread so that it twists. And the result is a new stitch on the needle and a twisted loop under the needle. The other type of make one increase is basically a simple cast on. When it's used as an increase, it is sometimes known as the Elizabeth Zimmerman make one increase. So you can use either hand to do this. I did a video on this one several years ago. But what you're doing is you're using the working yarn to create a twisted loop on the needle. You work it firmly. And in this case, the twisted loop is on the needle, not under the needle, and it gets worked for the first time on the next row. So even though I created both of these make one increases on the same row, the current row, they appear in the fabric to be on different rows. The one that the raised increase appears to be a row lower than the Elizabeth Zimmerman increase. Now you can use either increase in a pattern, it doesn't matter as long as you're consistent. But it is important to understand this row difference when you are trying to correct a mistake or to add an increase that you forgot to put in initially. So here you can see I have two increases here. I have they both are going to the right. One is significantly lower under the needle than the other one. Here you have a twisted loop and you get a single stitch under the needle, and then you have the stitch on the needle. And on this one there are three stitches under the needle and then the twisted loop. So if you have a situation where you need to correct this, say this is going to the right, you want it to go to the left, you would take it off the needle and let it drop down. And remember we had 3 stitches and then the twisted loop is in the 4th one. So we're going to take out 1, 2, sometimes these get stuck together, 3, 4, and then you see down here we've got 4 loops and then this one right here. And this is the one the twisted loop is created out of. Now sometimes you can let these out and then you're not sure which one of these is the twisted loop supposed to be. Remember we had a stitch on the needle, 3 stitches under the needle, and then the twisted loop. So we had a stitch on the needle, we had 3 stitches below the needle, and then we had the twisted loop. So it's right here. So to fix this, or to recreate it, we take a crochet hook and it's pointed down and we bring it behind that loop like this. If we want it to twist left, then we rotate the crochet hook so that it's pointing to the back and you can see that it's twisted left. If we want it to twist right, it's pointing at us. You rotate it until it's pointing to the back. And then we can start chaining up. We can recreate the stitches. So we've got our twisted loop and we're going to be pulling each one of these strands of yarn through a loop on the crochet hook to recreate the stitches. So the first time, because the twisted loop wants to just close on itself, it can be hard to pull it through. So what you do is you grab, you have that strand so it's laying across the crochet hook. I then put my fingernail on that strand here just to kind of keep it in place. And then I'm going to pull this long strand through the loop behind it. So I'm going to pull this strand through this loop. And I can't just pull it through like that. It would want to just hook this loop again. So as I'm pulling, I'm rotating the crochet hook so that I can get it through that loop. And from here on, nothing is twisted, so it'll be much easier to pull through. So I look for the next lowest rung. And again, I twist as I'm pulling it through. And you can see I'm pitching the fabric anyway, just it gives it some resistance. I've got this loop. And I'm twisting as I pull it through so that it doesn't hook on the loop. So now I've got the last strand, and I'm pitching the fabric just to give it some resistance. I'm turning the hook as I pull through the loop. Now I've got all the stitches chained back up. You can see I have my twisted loop, then I have the 3 stitches, and then I have my stitch that's supposed to go on the needle. I want to put it on there correctly so that the right leg is hanging over the front. So, and that's how you correct that. Okay, so what if we are knitting along and we realize we forgot to do a make one increase? Now you can add one in if it's only been a couple of rows. If it was way down in the fabric that you forgot it, it's a little harder because you're having to insert an entire column of stitches between 2 existing columns, and it tends to make the work very tight. But if it was just like if you're doing make one increases every right side row and you just forgot to do it on the previous right side row, then you can usually add it without problem. Here's where you need to know what type of increase you're using. Are you using the raised make one increase or the Elizabeth Zimmerman make one increase? So these stitches were created on the right side row. These stitches haven't yet been worked. So these were the stitches created on a wrong side row. So this running thread is from a wrong side row, and the second running thread here down is from the previous right side row. Now, if you were doing Elizabeth Zimmerman increases, then you want to use the second running thread to create your make one increase. So you want to do it from behind here and then twist to the left or the right, depending on if you're making a make one left or right. So let's say I'm going to do make one left. I'm going to go to the left, and then I find that strand that's right there, and then I pull it through and I put it on the needle. So I want to use my left needle and go through the front to get this mounted correctly. And then I've added in my increase. Now, if you're doing the raised make one increases, then you need to go a row below that. This is the running thread from the previous right side row. When you were on that right side row, you were supposed to pick up the running thread from the row below. So you need to go to the 3rd rung of the ladder, this 3rd rung of stitches, and let's say we're doing a make one left. So you come behind this one, you rotate to the left, and now you have two rungs to pick up. You have this one immediately above it, you have to pull through, and then you have this top one that you have to pull through. And now you should be back on track for continuing on with your pattern. The topic for this video was requested in my Ravelry group, Rocks. If you have an idea for a video you'd like to see me make, please leave your idea down in the comments below or join me over on Ravelry in my group Rocks. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe.